Here's an intro, maybe. Podcast. That's the Rogue One theme from the beginning.
Yeah. I recognize that because I watched that movie.
Yeah, it's a good flick, don't you think?
Yeah, I did think it was a good flick.
Hi, my name's Jackson McMurray.
My name is Adeline McMurray.
I am Satchel. Just Satchel.
Perfect. And this is No Nerds Allowed. I don't know why we just jumped into it. Usually we do a lot more nonsense at the beginning.
Are you sure you're not Satchel Solo?
Yeah, I'm actually Satchel Skywalker now, but thanks.
Whoa.
Aw.
Ooh.
All right. So, today we have a very special opening segment. Folks at home,
do we?
I would like to direct you towards
Our good friend.
Okay. I would like to direct you towards the new Nickelback cover of Devil Went Down to Georgia. With some backstory being that a couple of days ago, they made a weird tweet that made trending with the headline, Nickelback is up to something, ...
Yeah.
He sure was.
For 2 days, people were like, what is Nickelback up to? And the answer was a metal cover of Devil Went Down to Georgia with guitars instead of violins.
Wonderful.
So, let's just I would love for us all to take a moment and listen. If you're listening at home later, pause the podcast. Wherever you are, if you're listening to a podcast, you can listen to a song instead for a couple of minutes.
Yeah, you can just sit back, watch Nickelback's The Cover of The Devil Went Down to Georgia, released today.
It's hot.
In 2020.
Hot release.
Yeah. So
We're on the cutting edge of music.
Right.
I'll throw to you first, Satch. Your thoughts.
Thoughts? Is it wrong that I enjoyed it?
No, not at all.
Good, because
No.
I did very much actually enjoy this song. I was like, this is kind of rad. I like the animation. It's weird as hell.
You are the only one who liked the animation.
Cool. Glad to hear it.
I
feel like what happened with the animation, I feel like they sat down. I imagine it's a board meeting. It's Nickelback, so it was most definitely not that, but that's just the image in my head. And they all get down and they're all brainstorming and they have like an inspiration like Pinterest board. And they're like, all right, it's gonna be like papercraft. Like he's like a puppet and like the devil and like we could do like super cool like cuts and stuff.
Yay.
And then they got like all the smoke and like the like limited color palette and they're like, oh, it's gonna have like this papercraft aesthetic. And then they hired like not enough people to actually be able to do that.
Right.
And then just did what they could and then put it out today.
Back when I was living in Ellensburg, I used to go to an open mic night every week usually.
Mm-hmm.
And I had both Rockstar by Nickelback and Hero by Chad Kroeger in my heavy rotations of songs I would play on my guitar at the at the open mic night.
Nice.
And the tradition there was that people would get up and they would play 3 songs and then you would move on to the next person.
Yeah.
And I came so close to going for an all Nickelback set so many times. But I could. Yeah, but I could never get Photograph into a key where I could comfortably sing it. And that's one of my biggest regrets in my life. Is that I never went for the all Nickelback performance at Old School Records.
Photograph really is in a weird key when you think about it.
Yeah, because the thing about it...
Photograph!
Not to get too technical on the podcast.
Wow.
But it's very high, and it's not a song that can easily be transposed because, like, you can't just capo it up because it requires open strings and strings way up on the neck at the same time. So if you capo it up more than like 3 frets, then you can't really play it. And it's already tuned down a half step. So you can't tune it down anymore, or else the guitar will sound bad. So basically, I had no other option than to just fucking really try my hardest to sing as high as Chad Kroeger can in that song.
Oh, no.
And I never quite made it. I never quite had the courage.
Jackson, his name is Nickelback.
that Nickelback.
Please,
Right.
Chad Kroeger was his dad's name.
Yeah.
My father.
And he was born from the ashes of him, and now he is Nickelback.
You're right.
So,
It's
okay.
Nickelback Skywalker, actually.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
So, okay. We should probably get into the movie because these Star Wars episodes tend to run long, and I probably shouldn't be filling up the podcast with bullshit
With
already.
Nickelback.
It's very
Yeah.
important bullshit, though.
Yeah.
Today is our Rogue One episode. Our first Star Wars episode in a while, and I'll tell you exactly why that is. It's because Adeline and Satch and I already recorded this episode. But then I fucking beefed it and deleted all of our audio on accident. So,
No, Jackson, you only deleted your audio. But instead of just taking one for the team and just releasing a podcast that didn't have your audio in it, you decided to just can the whole project.
I think it would be a very interesting project to just have. What were your thoughts, Jackson? I thought
Silence.
so too.
long silence.
Yeah.
I
Tell
would
you what.
love- you gotta have a bonus episode where you just record back in what you think you're saying and we just post it.
That's our choose
That's-
your own adventure one.
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
the one
yeah.
you get to choose Jackson for the first time.
Yeah, there's like several options of what you could be saying in this
Yeah,
moment, and
that's
you have
really
to pick
good.
one.
If we ever start a Patreon, that'll be the first thing that goes up is the Satch and Adeline cut of Rogue One.
Yeah.
So we decided to just like not do a Star Wars that month, and we'll just come back next month and hopefully we'll have forgotten what we talked about.
Yeah.
I seem to remember talking about C-3PO's ass a lot though,
We did do that.
because
Yeah.
for some reason this goddamn podcast we do is cursed with our guests being thirsty for C-3PO 100% of the time.
No. Okay, hold on. Let me state my case.
Okay.
I believe the shoe is on the other foot. I think you were trying to tell me that C-3PO's ass was fat, and I heartily disagree. C-3PO has that GameStop booty if nothing else.
Because I think I had a false memory that C-3PO had a much more defined butt crack than he actually does. And Satch did the research.
I looked up pictures of C-3PO.
Found
He
that
did,
C-3PO's ass was much flatter than it was in my memory.
He's got the red string connecting the pictures of all the asses of all the Star Wars robots.
Yeah, it's that scene from Always Sunny. It's just
Right. Because Keisha Rhodes, Elliot McGuire, and Anastasia McAllister each said their own unprompted horny things about C-3PO
Without
on
communicating
this
to
podcast.
each other.
Yeah. Completely independently. It's kind of like how elephants and mammoths evolved on 2 totally different continents. Guests on our podcast just have horny things to say about C-3PO.
I think at a certain primal level, you've been sort of exposed to that enough that when we got to that point at the podcast where, we would normally start talking about C-3PO and how thirsty we all are for him,
Yeah.
you just kind of expected me to agree.
Maybe.
Well, it's like, they're like, all right, here's this uptight, like, nerd, like, butler guy, but it's the equivalent of just a man in a gold bodysuit. Like, that's just what he is. Like, I don't know, C-3PO's got a lot of horny energy, and I couldn't tell you where it comes from. I think it's the ass.
Wait, could it come from that one scene in, like, the one animated one where he does a striptease, and it's like...
Yeah, that's another one.
I
I'm
think
not familiar.
they know he has horny energy. I think they are
Yeah.
implicit in that one.
I couldn't tell you where it comes from. I think it's because he's like, oh, master, like, all the time. I think that's a part of it.
Okay, yeah, definitely.
And, like,
So.
I don't know, he's always afraid that somebody's gonna, like, decommission him. I don't know. Like, to punish, I don't know. I'm gonna stop digging this hole.
We keep thinking about C-3PO. It's gonna become worse.
See, it's like I was just so focused on digging, and then I looked up and realized that no one else had a shovel, so I think I'm gonna stop.
it's like he's so uptight. You wanna unwind him.
Yeah.
You on some level you wanna make him loosen up. You know.
Yeah.
With a sexual release.
Yeah.
I guess so.
And now that we've drawn attention to it, we're doomed to do this every Star Wars episode.
I'm uncomfortable with the energy we've created in the studio today.
I'm worried because as soon as we get to K2SO, that's an actual sexy robot. You know?
See, that's a robot that I get.
You're right.
Yeah.
It's like then all that energy will just be like, okay, now we're just gonna fuck K2SO. So
yeah.
We have to have a robot to point it at.
Yeah, we have to.
That's why I think the sequels are bad, because they don't have a sexy robot, except for C-3PO when he's in there every once in a while.
Yeah, but consider the Mandalorian, the Taika Waititi robot.
All right.
Yes, he is my
favorite.
No face, two guns.
I haven't watched
that's
The
all you need.
Mandalorian yet.
Also, very caring.
Yeah, is he
eventually.
protect baby or kill baby?
Well, first not to spoil it, but
yeah.
First he's kill baby, but later he's protect baby, making him daddy.
Okay,
right.
Gotcha.
Yes.
We stand a redemption arc. You trust this king.
Of course. So in order to pivot our way back into Rogue One, I'm just gonna start with a fun trivia fact that I learned. You know how the planet at the end is called Scarif?
Yeah.
Yes.
Picture this. This movie directed by Gareth Edwards.
Yes.
The writer's room. They're all chilling out. They're brainstorming names for planets. They're like, I don't know if we can do it. Let's take a break. Let's go down to Starbucks across the street. They walk over to Starbucks. Gareth Edwards walks up. He says, 1 coffee, black. And the barista's like, okay, great. What's your name? He's like, oh, it's Gareth. And so the barista writes Scarif on his cup, and he gets the cup. He's like, that's fucking it. That's the name of the planet.
Wait.
Scarif.
Oh, yeah, because his name is... I didn't even put that together.
Yeah. It's just a good story. It's just a really good story.
That's incredible.
God, so many good things have come out of Starbucks baristas. Mainly coffee, but in this case, this also.
So this is a movie that this is our 5th Star Wars movie that we've covered.
Yes.
This movie is basically a feature-length adaptation of the opening crawl of Star Wars.
Yeah.
Which, you know what? That's a good pitch. Like,
it's a good idea.
I mean, I don't know. I showed up for it. I got to see this movie early because I worked at the movie theater when it was coming out. And I'm just now realizing maybe I shouldn't have said that on stream because we were hella not supposed to have done that.
Oh, God, Jackson. George
like,
Lucas is going to throttle you.
But it was one of those things where, like, we got to see it, like, midnight, like, 2 days before when we got the print. And at the time, I don't know, statute of limitations is probably up. At the time, our managers were like, yo, like, we're cool and we're gonna, like, let you do this, but, like, for real, like, usually you're not supposed to post about it, but, like, for real, don't post about it this time.
And what are their full names and addresses?
Yeah, see, one of them's name was, I was trying to come up with a fake name, but the real name was all I could think of.
Just gonna really accidentally dox them.
Yeah. Anyway. But I got to play the fun game of, like, that day when I was working, like, overnight, because when Star Wars movies comes out, the theater would be open, like, 24 hours that one day. So I was working, like, through the night, like, just hauling ass at concessions, like, 100% of the time.
Is that, like, Hall & Oates, or is that different?
No. But it was like kind of fun because there was like this really excited energy and everybody was super excited.
Like, oh, Star Wars.
And people would be like, "Oh, how have you seen it yet? Is it any good?" And I was like, "Oh man, I haven't seen it." Wink.
Little me.
Yeah, it's really good, but fucking shut up about it.
Sit down low.
So yeah, that was just a good day for me. I got to see it in Dolby 3D, which is like the most expensive possible format at our theater.
That's pretty sick. Yeah.
It was pretty tight. Oh, another quick story. I know I've been talking a lot, but I have one more quick thing to add. So the Dolby Theater at AMC's is like a more expensive format, and it's basically like bigger screen, fancier projector,
Worse
like subwoofers
chairs
in the seats, and like darker auditorium. Like just a whole bunch of little things are like 20% better, and it like I really loved it. But they never did 3D because they had like a special different 3D system because it had dual projectors. So the glasses were like a special kind of glasses that were so expensive they had to put like tracking devices in them, like security devices to make sure people didn't steal them.
Oh, wow.
Which, according to my manager, was about 60% of the cost of those glasses was the security device.
Wait, they're so expensive because they have a security device.
It's like this weird Douglas Adamsian premise. Where it's like we put this expensive tracking device to make sure nobody steals these expensive glasses, except
these
they're not
slightly
really expensive.
less expensive glasses.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Anyway, but yeah, we never, at least by the time I left, they never committed to actually doing any public Dolby 3D screenings because the tickets would have been like $25 a piece.
Yeah.
And we didn't think anybody would pay for it.
Man, it's almost as if no one would ever pay that much money for a movie.
Yeah. Especially at home.
In your house with your shitty TV.
Right.
That's my favorite thing about this whole pandemic.
I love it.
All the movie companies are like, we're really struggling to get people into theaters.
Right. Which is good.
Reason. Yeah.
Well, but even before, but especially now, right? No theaters. And you know what? Do you think that people would pay more money to see a movie in a worse environment? Like, is that the pitch? I think that's the pitch. Charge them more.
We just need to charge them more for something they're going to pirate.
Charge them more for something that's worse. Because there's a pandemic.
On a service that they already have and already paid for.
Right,
Oh, but is it like, releasing this like single? No, it's on the service they're currently paying for.
Yeah.
And you won't be able to pay for it unless you pay for the other thing. But
right.
So yeah, you have to get both of the things in order to watch the thing.
So okay, really the net cost of Mulan is $40 a pop.
Yeah.
Which is insane. I think they're gonna back down from that by the time it actually comes out.
I've never seen a single person be like, well, because here's the thing. They were like, it's not the price of like one individual movie ticket, it's like the price of movie tickets for a family. But here's the thing. Mulan is not advertised to children. It's supposed to be like the edgy new remake, So it's not like if it was like the big summer like kids release and they're like it's like priced for your whole family to watch it, I would understand that a little bit more. But like this is like they're like not adults because that has weird connotations.
I don't know. It's like still a family movie.
And you only get to, it's like only like a one-time viewing, right?
I'm not sure. I'm sure that it'll be like everything else where it's like you get it for 48 hours or whatever.
Yeah.
In case you want to watch it twice, I guess.
But here's the thing. Eventually, it's going to be on Disney Plus anyway.
Right.
Right, yeah. Who's to say?
I don't know. I wasn't going to watch the movie anyway because I have such deep attachment to Mulan anyway, but...
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
I get burned every fucking time on these Disney remakes because every single time they attach, like, a really cool director and I'm like, oh, that sounds tight. Like, I'm actually really interested to see that. And then I
Yeah.
buy a goddamn ticket, and it sucks, and it's boring, and it doesn't feel like that director at all. And I
Yeah.
buy into it every single time. And I know I'm going to watch it because I'm like, oh, Nikki Caro, I really like the Whale writer, cool underground filmmaker with an interesting voice. I want to see this. And I know it's going to suck
It's gonna
ass.
be bad.
And I'm going to do the same goddamn thing for the Robert Zemeckis Pinocchio movie.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
just know it. And I'm going to be like, Tom Hanks is Geppetto. Zemeckis and fucking Hanks together again,
Right.
Forrest Gump reunion. I'm all in. And then it's going to suck
Zendaya
ass.
is Pinocchio?
See, every year I just hope for like another just miracle that was The Lion King on Broadway, which is
Yeah.
like this beautiful, just like
Piece of art,
completely
yeah.
changes the story, like the way the original was presented into this
Right.
new medium in this beautiful way, and every time it's just like, what if it's
not
just a
it.
bunch of people and we do the same story, but it's
Yeah.
more boring now?
What if we did it again, but now we know why everybody's mom is dead?
Yeah.
That's it. That's the whole pitch.
I will say, Dumbo was pretty okay.
Really.
Well, it's
That was-
it's not the plot of Dumbo, and that's a good thing.
No. I've
They're
seen it
doing
twice
some
now.
stuff.
I've seen it twice now. First time I was like, whatever. Second time I was like, okay. Yeah.
I'm fine
This
with
is-
Dumbo having the live version as if only to have a separate version that people can watch that's separate from the one with the racist crows.
Right,
Um,
fair enough.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
but-
they should just do live. If they ever do, yeah, like live action Peter Pan. Oh,
Good-
what's
pitch.
that gonna be like?
Well,
I mean,
except
they
that
would just
they've-
have to.
Other people have done that like 40
That's
times.
fair.
though, is
Yeah,
the
that's
thing.
like a play. Also, is that
Right.
maybe Disney
Yeah.
movies
It's a
should just
well-known
be plays, and we should stop trying to make them movies.
Yeah.
they're doing well on musicals. I like them.
Yeah, those are good. Those are designed to be like that.
Speaking of, when are we getting our Star Wars musical?
Like really.
That's a fucking good idea, though.
Yeah.
For real.
I know
Imagine
that the
like
Star
really
Kid-
fun
Joking
stage
around.
choreography, like in the dark with like lit up lightsabers.
Yep. That'd
Yeah.
be sick as hell, dude.
Be
You're like,
pretty
I know
fucking
that-
sick.
I know that Star Kid did do a Star Wars musical. I haven't watched it, and I'm like 90% sure it's a burlesque show. But here's
Oh,
the
okay.
thing. C-3PO's in it, and there's no way C-3PO's sexy as hell in it.
I don't know.
Okay. Adeline, I have a question for you.
Yes, hello.
Smash or pass, that circle robot that tortures Princess Leia at the beginning of Star Wars.
The what?
See, there is
The floating circle with the syringe coming out of it. Remember that one?
no. There is like a kinky energy, but it doesn't.
I might pass.
It's like smash or pass on a butt plug. Like it's the thing itself is a sexual object, but it's not the object that you're attracted to. You know?
Right. Okay. Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yo, smash Darth Vader with the
Oh, hell
thing,
yeah.
maybe.
Yeah.
That
there we
would.
go.
That's
There we
gonna
go.
work.
Rogue One, directed
One.
by Gareth Edwards.
Yes.
Directed by
I don't even-
Scarif.
By
Yeah.
Gareth Edwards. I don't even know where to start anymore.
Yeah.
The biggest thing that I think about this movie is that it is basically, I think, the absolute platonic ideal of like how to do like modern visual effects in movies like super well. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like this movie is second only to like Jurassic Park in terms of how perfectly integrated and awesome looking the VFX are, you
Oh,
know?
totally.
Yeah,
Like, you don't
yeah,
notice
I can see
them
that.
at all.
Yeah. And like the movie feels so good. And Gareth Edwards, both in Godzilla that he directed and this, has this absolute mastery of like scale. Like everything that is big really feels big. Every time a fucking Star Destroyer comes out of hyperspace or an AT-AT
Oh, yeah.
comes through the brush and you see it through the fog for the first time, you're like, fuck, that looks enormous. Like,
Right.
I feel that, like, so viscerally.
That's, like, I think, not to cut you off or whatever.
Yeah.
But I just, that was one of the things that you just reminded me is, like, that AT-AT scene is like, yeah, we know they're big, but I think that's the first time we've seen them from, like, it's coming at me perspective.
Yeah, like, ground
Yeah.
That's
perspective.
like, oh my god.
Holy
Yeah.
shit.
It's so tight.
Well,
And
first of all, this movie, very crunchy.
very crunchy movie.
Extremely crunchy. But what I love about the whole end heist on Beach Planet,
Scarif,
Scarif.
Adeline.
Scarif, is that it has really built in and really clear, like, layers to it. And I think that just adds so much to, like, your understanding what's happening. Like, we have the top layer that's, like, space, and you have the shield, and then the satellite, and then you have, like, the ground troops. And something about the
Right,
way they establish, like, these layers of the same place is really cool and really creates a sense of space and, like, where everything is and, like, what, how, like, again, it shows size, like, how big these things are, like, compared to space. And on the ground, everybody seems so little compared to the next layer up being, like, the AT-ATs, and the next layer up being, like, the Star Destroyers, you know? Like, there's a really clear, like, layering.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think, like, the headline of this movie is that Rogue One is, like, fine for, like, an hour and a half, and then it's the best fucking movie ever made for, like, 40 minutes.
Yeah.
And, like, that is, like, really my biggest takeaway, even now that I've seen it, like, probably, I think, 4 times. Like, the end of this movie is so, like, spectacularly realized. And Gareth Edwards was a VFX artist and animator for a really long time before he started directing. And it shows, because he fucking knows what's up. And it's
he
like,
knows what's good.
and not to pretend like I know too much, because it's, you know, I'm not a visual effects artist and I've never really been on a set where that's been a major facet, but like, the thing about a lot of, like, modern VFX that doesn't look very good is that most of the time what they're doing is because, you know, like, painstakingly recreating an alien planet piece by piece with a team of 40 people over the course of 3 weeks or whatever for one shot is a lot more expensive than hiring one guy to make a really complicated model over the course of a week and a half, you know? That's just the way that it is. But the thing about it is that if you hire one guy to make a model, it means that you have to pay him to make a model, like, way before you start principal photography. Like, you have to, anything practical in a movie has to be finished way before you start shooting. And if you just, like, if you're overly reliant on CG, then, you know, you could just put a bunch of guys on a green screen and get a lot of coverage and just kind of wing it in post-production, you know?
Yeah.
And not that that never works, but it works a lot less frequently than, you know, having practical stuff thought out already does, you know? And that's part of the thing that, like, the thing about this movie is that it does as much practically as it can, and the stuff that it can't do practically, it is, the VFX are fully integrated into what they are shooting practically. It's not like you have a bunch of guys on a green screen or, like, a big green screen window or whatever, and it's like, we didn't, like, super storyboard this, but we're gonna, like, cut to as much coverage as we can and, like, animate around it so it looks good, you know? Like, everything, and that's, I talk every once in a while about the Corridor Crew YouTube channel who do those, like, VFX breakdowns of movies. There's one where they compare the CGI velociraptors in Jurassic World to the CGI velociraptors in Jurassic Park, and it's like, the ones in Jurassic Park, like, look way better, even though even though it came out fucking 30 years ago now.
Okay,
and, like,
Jurassic Park has no right to look as good as it does. Jurassic Park looks incredible.
It's just so cool, and
it's because all that stuff was set up in pre-production. They knew exactly what they wanted to do with the VFX ahead of time, so they could plan their shoot explicitly around making that look as good as possible. Whereas in Jurassic World, they just, put a guy with some tennis balls on him in front of Chris Pratt and we're like, act like a velociraptor, and we'll just shoot it like normal, and then we'll just animate a velociraptor in there afterwards,
Yeah. Where they did something digital, but, like, in the practical mindset.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that is the thing that makes these modern Star Wars movies head and shoulders above the other, like, Disney blockbusters right now. Because, like, as much as I do love Marvel movies still, they are so green screeny. Like, and it doesn't make them bad, but they definitely don't feel as good as Star Wars movies feel,
Yeah, no. Well, Star Wars movies are such a different reality than ours. Like, we're on totally different planets, totally different places, but they feel so real because a lot of it is so practical.
Right.
That, like, it just so effectively creates, like, this whole new world.
Right.
And then in Marvel movies, where it's just kind of reality adjacent, I feel like that green screeny, like, they're making it even more adjacent by making it not feel as real with, like, the green screens, Like, it's just another layer removed.
I think, like, from a very sort of... I know very little of visual effects and stuff like that, but I think a lot of the Marvel movies, when they do these sort of different locations that are very odd, like they go on the the alien planets and they fight Thanos or whatever, in that, like, final location area, it's a lot of stuff sort of takes place in spite of the background. Like, it's like that's the background, it's like this, it's the setting of stuff that's going on, but you don't interact with the world that it's taking place in. Like, Star Wars has a lot of establishing moments with the characters that are on these worlds and stuff like that, so that there are just scenes where it's just like, hey, here's a battle at this planet, but a lot of it is like, here is the town of this planet, and here's, like, the battle going around these buildings and stuff like that, as opposed to, like, this is like a fight scene in the background now, and everyone else is
to
up
just
front.
Like a battlefield.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. And part of the reason why this film feels so good to watch and crunchy is Gareth Edwards talks a lot about how he convinced Disney to let him have, every day on set, they let him have 1 hour of indie time, which was, like, at the end of the day, like, 80% of the crew would go home. It would just be him and the actors and, like, the DP and, like, a few crew guys to adjust lights or whatever. And before they would tear down the set, they would let him have an hour to just get whatever he wanted with, like, a stripped-down crew with these super expensive sets and costumes and stuff.
Yeah.
And you have to imagine, like, a lot of the best stuff came from that, And it's something that's really interesting. But the other half of that is that he did convince Disney to let him do that, but they also fired his ass after principal photography.
Yeah.
And made Tony Gilroy come in and shoot the reshoots. That's a weird situation because, by all accounts, Gareth Edwards was still, like, on set for the reshoots, and he was, like, a consultant, and he was, like, talking to people the whole time. Like, he never, like, totally left the project, but he was just not the director of the reshoots. So, and, I think this movie comes together really well in spite of that. There are definitely a few spots where you're like, yeah, this feels like a weird reshoot from somebody else. Like that scene at the beginning where Diego Luna and that British character actor we never see again have that, like, weird exposition dump scene where they shoot a couple of stormtroopers and you're like, I don't know what this is.
Yeah.
You know the one?
Yeah. Where he, like, shoots the guy and we're, like, establishing that he's, like, not a good guy, but he's working for the rebellion. Like, it serves a purpose, but I also could just infer that.
Yeah, it's just, like, this one static set where it's just like, oh, my name's whatever, and this is what I believe, and here's what we're doing, here's the mission. And you're like,
I shoot people sometimes. Isn't that sexy? And then he climbs up a wall like Zac Efron.
Right.
Yeah.
the,
But I think
yeah,
like,
just try to move past that. Try.
it's the same kind of deal. Is that like I don't know how you would do it. I think you would just need to create like a different scenario for the city in that scene to feel more real.
Yeah.
But it's that like city in that case. It's just sort of the backdrop. You don't interact with any of the story, any of the elements of the city except for the sort of like the immediate action of the characters.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, for sure. But yeah, and it's like this movie. Like, I can't get over how excited I am that Star Wars continues to have aliens that are just dudes in costumes.
Yeah, no, it's
because
so nice.
that is so fucking rare right now. Like, Star Wars are the only people who will still do dudes in costumes.
Yeah, and they don't... Because everyone's like, CGI, like, technology and, like, body mapping and, like, that kind of stuff is, like, so advanced.
Right.
But, like, it's not the same. It's not as crunchy. It doesn't look
Yeah.
as good. He doesn't look like he's a part of the world. He looks like it's something separate. So when it's just a dude in a mask, it doesn't matter how hokey the mask is. He looks like a real person who's actually there. Like, I don't know if the Lord of the Rings TV show is ever coming out, but if they do, I hope to God that, like, the orcs and stuff are not CGI, because
right.
I would
they
be
do like
so
paint
upset.
and stuff like that, and like prosthetics. That would be so much cooler.
That would be so good. Ignore how problematic orcs are. Just like get
Yeah.
real costumes. If you're gonna go problematic, go all the way.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing about it is that you can't even necessarily say that like CGI characters are always a bad thing because K2SO in this movie looks
fair.
great.
But he's
It's
also not a
literally-
dude. He's a robot. That's
Right, well,
different.
exactly. But it's all about doing things practically when you can, and the things that you can't, you've got to, like, integrate that process into your whole production, you know?
Yeah.
It can't be an afterthought like it is so much of the time.
I wonder, though, how much of that sort of effect is based on our sort of pre-existing knowledge of how the Star Wars universe is, because when we see, like, a dude, like, I wonder if we saw a dude in a suit in, like, a different film, if it would be sort of as integrated, because I think Star Wars is very, it has this very specific, set of, like, I don't know, rules, like,
Well, it's like
the world, yeah, the
they've
world
started with silly costumes since the beginning.
right, and that's how the world looks like in Star Wars. You know that, like, that the it's a bunch of, the robots are big and clunky and it's super, like, metallic and fake, and the aliens are all these, like, rubbery people, and that's how the world looks like.
Right.
It was built off of what they created it to be, whether that was out of because they because of the time period of, like, that was, like, the best they could do, or if, like, that's, like, a stylistic, like, which I think part of it was, like, I think George Lucas is like, this is gonna be practical effects all the way down.
Right. I was watching Alien the other day. And that movie, obviously it's like the pinnacle of, like, practical science fiction filmmaking.
Oh, yeah,
but
that's really good.
But the thing about it that I kept thinking was, like, every time the xenomorph has to, like, move or, like, take a step, you, like, immediately realize it's a dude in a rubber suit. Like,
Yeah.
the way I don't know if it's just the nature of the suit itself, or if the guy inside the suit was, like, not committed to it fully enough or whatever. But like, that movie's so scary, except for those few moments where it's like the alien, like, takes a step towards somebody. You're like, that is Jeremy in a rubber suit. And,
I know that guy.
like, and like
Did
that
we go to high
is
school together?
I know that walk.
that is, like, a great example of, like, a spot where, like, some sparing specific character CGI would be super helpful. And that's what they do in Jurassic Park too. They have, like, practical objects that they swap out with CG when they need it to do something that can't happen in real life. which I think is just the only way to make that really work, you know? I don't know. You gotta make stuff. Like, make stuff sometimes, you know? With your hands.
Dude, we...
Do you ever just, like, look at your hand? You can make things.
With computers. We gotta get back to nature.
These fucking millennials with their fucking CGI dinosaurs. Just get your hands and make like a dinosaur.
We don't know how to walk like velociraptors anymore. It's just sad, man.
So okay. In order to talk about the plot of this movie.
Okay. Well, hold on.
Of course.
I'm gonna include chat. So Tabby in the chat made a very interesting point. She says we were making the joke about that weird establishing shot at the beginning that's kind of clunky and feels like a reshoot. And her opinion is that she never really got attached to Cassian the whole movie. And I think that's a very valid thing to say about the characters in this movie, where individually all of these characters are very interesting and very well developed, and like you want to like know more. Like obviously this character has a backstory. I want to like know what's going on with them. But the movie tries to sell you on this idea that it's like a found family, like group of scallywags coming together. But that's not really the reality of the film.
Yeah.
Like individually these people all have very strong characters, but we have very few moments of like actual like character interactions or character growth. So like like I watched this movie maybe like 4 times now, and I continually forget people's names because they they don't, as cool as they are, they're not very substantial.
Now I have the character list up on my screen. Yeah. Just so I know. I think, like, because, not all the characters have meaningful interactions with one another, or even at all. Like, the pilot, who is Bodhi.
Bodhi
the pirate, Bodacious the pirate from high school. He, he's kind of a cool character, at least he could be, but, like, he's kind of whatever, because he doesn't get any meaningful interactions with people. He gets a couple of sort of interesting moments where, he really puts his life, and his skills to the test and stuff like that. Yeah. But he doesn't, he doesn't talk to anyone in any meaningful way that, like, places him within the group at all.
Yeah, like, individually, I could go on and on about these characters. Like, even with Bodhi. Like, there's such an interesting story there. Like, he is an Imperial pilot that turned and is now putting his whole life on the line for the rebels.
Right.
And, like, what that means and, like, what he has to do. And the way that he just, like, dies randomly in a tragic moment. That's so moving.
And this complete, like... Because everyone else gets this... And that is the other thing, is they give everyone else this kind of, like... These really meaningful deaths that's super drawn out, and they all stand for what they mean until they go out with their last breath. And Bodhi's death is kind of like it's sudden. It's just like he does he does what he needed to do, and then they throw him a grenade. They give him one last shot, and that's
just
it.
Looking at the grenade. Yeah, that was always sort of the pitch of this movie, was like, it's a Star Wars movie that really feels like a war movie, right?
Yeah, it's like these people just die randomly.
Yeah,
which I think it's good.
Yeah, to me that's the crucial distinction between like an action movie and like a war movie, quote unquote, is like in like an action, more blockbustery movie, people's deaths are very meaningful. I think the difference between that and a war movie is that in a war movie, the thing that makes you sad about the deaths is how meaningless they seem to be, and how random
how
they
just
can be.
Random. Like a stray bullet will get
you. Yeah, exactly.
You know that the death leads to a victory, or the death happened because we're trying to do something good, so that like makes it like that's the what's the word I'm looking for? Like, that's the resolution, is the fact that they died for something.
Yeah.
But, like, yeah, like, we don't... There's not a moment, it's not Spider-Man, oh, this is a spoiler for Infinity War, it's not Spider-Man dissolving in Tony Stark's arms, it's him looking at a grenade, an explosion, and then we have to keep going, which is sad in itself, but we don't take any time to mourn, because we have things we gotta be doing.
Yeah, there's no time to...
Yeah.
Right.
I think this movie would have really freaked me out as a kid if I had seen it. Like,
yeah, I don't think I would have been able to, like, get over, almost any of the deaths, really. It's just the fact that...
right,
like,
they all die.
Yeah. And the fact that, like, the happy ending in the end is...
cradling each other as the world explodes.
Right! Just the entire world is just gone. And then the Rebel Alliance, you know that they don't, like, get out in time. It's this huge loss that they take for this one opportunity. And obviously, you know, if you've watched the rest of Star Wars, you know they win.
Right.
I think it'd be really interesting to have someone who doesn't know, to watch this completely chronologically. And just, like, watch initially just, like, this absolutely devastating blow, this one act of heroics that even in the end almost doesn't really make it worth it, because Darth Vader almost just comes in and kills all of them and steals the plans.
I could just imagine, like, hey, Lil Jackson, you're about 6 years old. You had a pretty rough day at VBS because they talked about heaven a little bit too much, and you got really freaked out about the idea of death. And you spent the final worship service of VBS in the lobby with your mom crying and her trying to tell you that it's fine. I'm not gonna die anytime soon, hopefully. Like, hey, here's the Star Wars movie. Here's the Star Wars movie, all about how no matter how righteous you are, and no matter how much you do the right thing, sometimes you can just die still. And
sometimes the world is unfair and cruel, and you will die one day. Yeah, exactly. And it might be today. Who knows?
But yeah, and it's like, I don't know, it's such a crazy ballsy move for a movie like this to be like, yeah, they all die. Like, every character in this movie dies. And it's a weird... I mean, I talked a lot in our Solo episode about how, like, it's tricky with Star Wars because so much of their storytelling when it comes to things that are not, like, the big main movies are about filling in cracks between stories you already know. Yeah. And it can be really, really hard to craft character arcs that take place in between things, because usually the character arcs that exist already are pretty satisfying, and that's why you like them. So trying to either come up with different character arcs that take place before or after a character arc you already like, or trying to take place like a miniature character arc interstitially, like in between a different character arc, is really hard to do. And this movie really smartly just comes up with all of its own new characters and
and kills all of them.
All of them. Go ahead.
I think I was just saying, like, I think one of the main gripes I know at least Marcus had talked about in his video, not to sort of like harp on that, but I remember, like, if you are someone coming into this and you know the sort of Star Wars formula, I think it almost can be hard to get attached to these people because they're all new. I guess I did not experience this problem, but I know that's like at least I've seen some else, like, other people talk about online, is that, like, people came into their, like, well, they don't show up anymore. Like, why would someone that's that important, you know, not be in the story anymore or whatever?
Yeah,
but
that's a weird mindset that requires you to be so invested in the franchise you can't care about anything that isn't capital I important, you know? Yeah. Which, I don't know.
That would be like somebody watching Clone Wars and being like, why the fuck am I supposed to care about Ahsoka? She's not in the movies. Yeah, like, but fair. Then Ahsoka is incredibly important, actually.
And, like, not to discount that point of view, because, like, if you feel that way, like, sorry.
I said it in a very condescending tone, but that's not
It's like, you're an idiot. No.
But it's just like, I don't know. I don't feel that. I think this is a story on its own. Now, okay.
Yeah, okay. No, I get that, yeah.
We've been very positive about this movie thus far, but I gotta say, a lot of this movie doesn't really have any meaningful character work in it, is the thing.
No.
Nope.
Yeah, that's the problem.
The whole beginning of the movie is almost useless. I almost didn't need to have it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And
especially because we had already watched this movie, already recorded a podcast. I'd already seen the movie in like the last month.
Right.
I was really like, I'm just gonna scooch on over to the end because I feel like I don't need to watch any of this again.
Yeah, Adeline and we watched from the beginning up until Forrest Whitaker got blown up.
Damn.
And then we just went right to Scarif at the end.
Yeah. Because like that whole like really sudden change of heart that Jin kind of has.
Yeah.
For no reason. You don't need to know about that. You just know that she does. Like nothing really happens in between those moments.
I think like the moment where she gets the message and she watches her father die and he's like you have to be a good person and stuff like that. Yeah. I think that's another criticism of this movie is that like people don't think that think that she basically like changed her entire worldview immediately.
Right.
I think that
she did watch her dad die.
Yeah, she watched her dad die, and she's always been sort of shown to be sort of rebellious and like goes against things. She didn't have like a cause to fight for, but I think I can see the shift. What I can't see is the speech that she gives. And I said this in the last recording. Is like that is the only thing that like does bug me, is that she gives this really beautiful, moving speech, even though she is very explicitly stated to be kind of bad at speaking in the past.
Yeah, there's just way more eloquent ways they should have shown that she had a change of heart, and I think her just silently doing the things that she does would have been enough to show, she's had a change of heart. Yeah, she's gonna go storm the beaches on a suicide mission because her beliefs have changed.
Or even the like really awkward speech that she gives on the ship. That would be perfect on its own. Is like, okay, you know what? She's like ready to like try to rally people around this cause that she firmly believes in. Because I think that's super. You know, it's kind of awkward, and it's kind of like, well, we're all gonna die. It's, you know, it feels very in character, unlike the sort of board meeting where it's like, it sounds like that's just like a Star Wars script of the hero, you know?
Yeah.
To me, if I were to do like a little rewrite of it, and like, I don't know, I almost hesitate to bring this whole thing up because like Jin being not that awesomely written of a character, is like a weird touch point that MRAs like to bring up a lot when they're complaining about women in Star Wars. Whatever.
Right.
It doesn't change the fact that on this one they're kind of right. Like,
and I don't like that they're right.
Exactly.
Yeah,
but like
I
they've kind of got a point on that one. She's kind of lame. But I think if it were me, I would change it a little bit more. So it's like she has that moment where she doesn't actually watch her dad die, but she thinks she watches her dad die at the hands of the Empire, and it's like this radicalizing moment, and all of a sudden like she starts to really care about this whole movement. And just as she's really starting to get excited about it and really starting to care about this and really believe in it, she goes on that ship and they're just like, yeah, it's not really working out, guys. Sorry, let's just all go home and, you know, just kick our feet up and like maybe we'll try again some other time. And to have her be like, well, no, like this is like, I'm fresh at this, like this is my first one, this is important, you know? Like I feel like it's not like totally different from what we get, but it's just like a slight shift of motivation that I think would feel a lot better.
While we're talking about women in Star Wars, I wish there were more women in Star Wars in this film because I think I said this exact same thing last time, but like that whole like she does her rallying speech and she like gets her group of rebels and they're like, we're Rogue One and we're gonna do it, and they're all men except for her, and just literally for no reason. Why
very
aren't there
cool
any women
to have
there?
Very cool to have like, oh, it's a female protagonist, nice, so they're continuing it on. Oh, and that's the only female character?
That's the only one.
Great, cool.
She's one of the boys. She's practically a man. She doesn't have big tits, so she's a man.
Right, yeah.
Adeline, if you had to pick two characters from this movie that you replace with women, who would they be?
I think...
I have an answer, but I want to hear yours.
I think my two things that I would change I think it would be fun if Saw was a woman, because it's weird to have added daddy issues when she already has daddy issues with her actual dad. There's like two sets of daddy issues.
She does have kind of compounded daddy issues.
Yeah, exactly. If she had mommy issues on top of daddy issues, I think that would just be... I feel like they would feel more connected even
That's
so.
a story arc.
Yeah, exactly. I think... See, I was gonna say Bodhi, but just because he...
No, I was also gonna say Bodhi.
Yeah, it's because I think it's because of his... There's no reason he has to be a man. Like, he doesn't have any character interactions with anybody. Like, he could be anything. I think he could be a woman. It would be cool.
I think a female turret would be good too.
That would be cool.
As well.
Yeah,
but see, the thing about that is that it wouldn't be Donnie Yen then, which I think is maybe the
true.
most important thing about this movie.
You have to sacrifice Donnie Yen to get the...
My pitch?
We have to sacrifice him for feminism.
My pitch would have been Saw Gerrera and Krennic. I think if Krennic was a woman, that would be really cool too.
Krennic?
Remind me.
Oh!
Ben Mendelsohn, the white-coated bad guy.
Oh,
that would be interesting. Yeah.
Or
like the what's her name? The like really cool general person that you see for about 2 seconds in the in like the sequel movies or whatever.
Oh, Mon
Are you
Mothma.
talking about
No.
Oh wait, are you talking about Laura Dern?
No.
Purple Hair Woman?
I'm talking about like the like enemy like clone woman who's really cool.
Oh, Phasma.
Phasma, yeah. You get like that kind of situation where like she is just as imposing and stuff like that. And it doesn't have to be a man to be this sort of like
Nazi.
Threat Nazi. Yeah. You don't have
Although
there are female Nazis too, so
girl boss.
Girl boss.
So, although I am just realizing now, though, that, like, Ben Mendelsohn, low-key, probably gives the best performance in this movie, though. So, like, I guess you would also have to, like, sacrifice. But, you know what, whatever.
There are a lot of really good performances.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are.
There's like a lot of really good names of stuff. So
I mean, we're talking about how all of these characters are pretty much misused in this movie, but I think Saw Gerrera really gets the short end of the stick in this movie because, again, we establish this crazy cool guy. He's like the leader of like these people who like are on the same side as the rebellion, kinda, but they've got different ideals and different ways of doing it, and they're more violent, and the rebels hate them, and they're like it's kind of like an infighting thing where they're on the same side, but not really. Right, and he's like, he's got this oxygen tank, like he's like been through shit, and like he's raised this girl as his daughter, and now he thinks that she's come to kill him. Like it's all just like super compelling.
He has very clear Darth Vader parallels. That's all
totally
to have on that side. But
well, and then even like his death, I think, it's this moment. I think his death is pretty cool. I feel like it lacks emotion because we don't spend enough time establishing him. Where like he's this man who's like he's basically dying. He's got that oxygen mask and he's like he's done something good. He knows that Jin is gonna continue like what he thinks is good, and he's just like, I'm tired of running. I'm gonna die. And I think that's a really cool moment. But I think it loses its oomph because we don't know him that well.
Because I was going to say, the first few times I watched this movie, that beat always felt super weird to me. Because I was like, okay, but like the ship's right here, and like you're going to blow up, so like, okay, whatever. But then eventually I came to the realization, like, he's like 100 years old and he's got robot lungs. Like, you're probably just like, it's, you know what, it's not worth it. Like, it's fine. I'll take one this time.
Someone did mention that like Saw was a character in the extended universe like before.
Oh, that's right.
So
that's why he couldn't be a woman. Yes. But I mean, there's no reason it has to be Saw Gerrera, like that specific person anyway, because again, he doesn't do anything in this movie, so he could be literally anyone.
That's true, yeah. We talked a lot about Solo, how it's like basically, at least we were saying then, it was like the only movie that really like takes cues from other extended universe media, but I guess I'm remembering that Saw Gerrera does like I mean, I don't think he ever, like, physically shows up in Clone Wars, but he's, like, mentioned as a character a handful of times in Clone Wars. And I always made note of it because I knew the name from Rogue One, but I guess that was before Rogue One, so...
Yeah.
That's a weird thing. I haven't thought about that.
Yeah.
I was listening to somebody... it was Blank Check podcast talking about this movie, and they made this point about Forrest Whitaker that I thought was so perfect. And it's especially funny because Adeline and I just watched a weird John Travolta movie where Forrest Whitaker just played, like, a guy. Like, like a small town person who's friends with John Travolta, and you're like, this is weird casting. But, like, something about Forrest Whitaker is he is always doing so much business. Like, thinking about him in this movie and in... like Black Panther and like in Arrival, he's always got like the weirdest, like most acting strategy, but at the same time, everything he does is always very understated. Like, he's simultaneously going as big as possible and fairly small at the same time.
Well, that's another cool thing about Saw is that it's like he's crazy. Like, we try to dance around it, but he's a crazy guy. Like, he could be the leader. He's like the leader of this unit, and he's got
paranoid.
all this important... he's got all
like...
this important information, and he's like this good man, but he's crazy. Like,
And just another thing that I don't necessarily... I just am shoehorning in here because I don't know if we have a good segue for it. I was listening to one of the writers, Chris Weitz, talk about his experience on this movie. And because, you know, there was a fairly troubled production, there were like 4 writers who were working on it at different times, and it kind of got cobbled together. But, which kind of shows because the writing in this movie not super strong, but whatever. But he talked about, like, because, you know, normally I am of the thinking that not everything needs to be explained. Like, listeners of the podcast know that it drives me absolutely insane when people try to tell me that there's an important reason why Jack Sparrow has beads in his hair. I don't give a fuck. Like, I wasn't asking that question. But I do think the story of how they got the Death Star plans, and also explaining exactly why there's one flaw in it.
Why there's this glaring weakness in the Death Star.
Is really interesting, because he was talking about, like, a conflict they had in the writer's room. Because... like, when they were first, like, putting it together. Because, like, one person was basically saying, like, an engineering project of this size, there's gonna be bazillions of flaws. Like, there's no way to dance around it. It was a machine made by people. There's gonna be plenty of ways you could figure out to blow it up, you know?
Right.
But the way they talk about it in Star Wars is like that there's one spot we found, the only spot where we could blow it up. And the reasoning is more like, you know, if this is a fantasy world where we can believe that basically the only way it makes sense that there's exactly one weak point is if there wouldn't have been any weak points if not for that one, if that makes sense. And if you're gonna have one weak point, you're gonna have a reason why there's one weak point as opposed to a whole bunch, if that makes any sense.
And one weak point that just is like it only needs one shot to like that's like it's not like oh, you could chip away at the outside, you know, there's like a small, the shields don't like fall all the way around, so there's part of the out, it's like no, there's one thing, if you shoot it it explodes. That's it.
Right.
We dipped Achilles in the river Styx, but see, I was holding him by his ankle, so what happened was...
Exactly.
But yeah, and I think that the reason I don't mind this is because this story is just compelling on its own, even if it doesn't connect to anything else. Like, the story of this, like, sort of Werner von Braun type who has to, like... who sabotages a super weapon while he's working on it, and trying to get the information of exactly how he sabotaged it to a rogue organization so they can stop it before it commits crimes against the galaxy is cool. That's a cool idea. Even if it wasn't Star Wars, that's just a cool story, you know, that I don't think has really been told before. So, like, to me, the fact that it explains why there's one hole in the Death Star in Star Wars is like cool, but like that's not the part of it that I care about, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
Man, the first Star Wars movie really had just the biggest balls to start their movie off with a paragraph.
I know.
And we were just all super cool with it, like thinking like no one could ever do that now.
Yeah.
Like no one else could do that because we
they
would
write
all
books
just...
telling you not to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
but then
Adeline,
Star
War
Wars
for the
was
Planet of
just
the
like,
Apes.
That's fair. That's a short paragraph, though.
I mean, yeah, no, you're right, though, because it is, people do it. It is not never done, but that is sort of, I don't know, it's very interesting how, like, movie structuring and pacing has changed so much. I remember I think a lot about when Steven Spielberg and George Lucas talk about Indiana Jones. In Raiders of the Lost Ark specifically, their whole like mission statement for that movie was like, we're gonna make a movie with all the boring parts cut out. Like, this movie's gonna be all killer, no filler. It's gonna be nonstop. Like, we're not gonna have any of the boring scenes where people just talk to each other that every other movie has, right?
Yeah.
And you watch Raiders of the Lost Ark now, and you're like, it's a little slow. You know, like compared to like how much we've like been able to successfully figure out like what exactly you need and what exactly you don't.
Yeah,
like,
and how to edit it perfectly.
Yeah, and like comparing Raiders of the Lost Ark to fucking like Mad Max Fury Road is like there's no comparison, you know?
Yeah, you can't do that.
And it's just so fascinating that like the way that we structure stories and decide what can stay and what we don't need is really, really interesting to me.
Yeah. This is another thing that I don't know how to segue into.
Okay, go for it.
Well, part one is a joke, part two is a genuine statement. Part one is, so I'm Darth Vader. I used to be Anakin. The way that I died was that my best friend cut me in half and then threw me into a river of lava where I suffered and suffered and suffered.
That kind of sucks, but go on.
I'm gonna build my house on a lava planet.
No, okay, here's what's up, though. First of all...
I know there's a canonical reason, but just...
So, his house is on Malastare. It's the same place where he got cut up. Because he's a Sith, and all his power comes from rage... And he can look at that exact fucking river where Obi-Wan chopped...
He can look at the exact spot
my
where his
GD arm
skin
off.
still is, sizzling.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And be like, man, fuck the Jedi. I'm gonna go kill him.
Fuck!
You know what? That's actually really smart.
It's tight. And there's also, I mean, we talked about this in the Solo episode, there's that whole comic book series that Charles Soule writes that is awesome. I highly recommend it. It's called Darth Vader, Lord of the Sith. It's like 25 issues or so. Nice and short in terms of like the broad scope of like a long ongoing comic book series. But the last arc of it is all about him building that castle and just being like, so here's my pitch. I found this ancient Sith relic that carries the soul of this Sith architect from eons ago. And I'm going to resurrect him through Force magics and have him design a castle for me that it has the exact sacred geometry that I can tap into the primal force of the dark side and tear a hole through the afterlife and bring Padme back. And then
that's real?
It's sick as hell. It's so cool.
That's kind of
And
wild.
so he builds this castle on Malastare, but then the ancient Sith architect betrays him and goes through himself, but then he just ends up being stuck on the dead side and he can never get through again. And he's like, no, god damn it, and now I'm extra angry.
And then he goes, no!
Exactly. Pretty sick. I recommend it to everybody because it's actually very good.
I just like to imagine Darth Vader's chilling in his house. He's just like, he sits down in a chair, he like pulls up a book, he sips a glass of tea, and you just like see him like let out this like content sigh. And then he just looks out the window and sees the spot where he dies and just like smashes the teacup on the ground and like flips a chair and then walks out of the room.
Did you have a second part to what you were saying? I feel like I interrupted.
Oh, also, I'm so glad that this movie let's Darth Vader be scary.
Oh,
Yeah.
Because it fucking slaps. Yeah. When he gets into that corridor with all of those rebel guys and he just fucking tears them apart.
Yeah, it's literally like a horror movie.
There's
as you
like
see the
sirens
dude just get cut in
off.
half through a door.
And then, like sirens are going and it's dark and you just see his red lightsaber ignite and like all the guys are just like screaming and running. Like it's so good because like Darth Vader back in the day. Darth Vader used to be scary. Like, you hid behind the couch when Darth Vader showed up. Because he's gonna choke a guy, and he's wearing all black, and he's scary. Yeah. But then, now he's just, like, on the bright up Skechers. He's on kids' backpacks. And it's I want Darth Vader to be scary. Nobody hides behind the couch when Darth Vader shows up. Little Adeline wanted to marry Darth Vader. Something's wrong.
Right. No, and I mean, not to be this guy a second time in 2 minutes, but there's another comic book series.
Yeah, where I married Darth Vader.
It's called Vader Down. It was like a crossover between the main Star Wars series and the Darth Vader series a few years ago, where the story was like, something goes wrong in Darth Vader's TIE Fighter. He's alone. He crash lands on this planet, and he has absolutely no defenses. He's just alone in the desert. So the rebels like hear about it and they're like, oh shit, this is our chance to just like kill Darth Vader, like just get this over with. So the whole series, it's like 6 issues of fucking a bazillion rebel spaceships flying down and trying to kill Darth Vader, and Darth Vader by himself just fucking up their shit so bad. Like finding
and it's so goddamn cool.
It's really cool. And it's, you know, an argument has been made that it's a little over the top. Like, it's a little bit ridiculous how insanely powerful he is in that series.
Yeah.
But it's cool.
I like it.
It's cool, though.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Just don't think about, like, how the hell then the twink from the desert planet could defeat him. You know, just kind of pass past that.
It's because it's his son.
It's his little boy.
It's his boy.
He's compromised.
He's crying. That whole scene. He's crying.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Like, I just wanted to note that, like, there's such a distinct color palette in that, like, whole scare sequence at the end where, like, everything is on that, like, blue ocean and, like, the green. So much so that whenever you cut to inside the cockpits,
like blue.
All the warning lights are flashing, like, light blue, like the same color as the ocean. And it looks, it feels so nice to look at. Really good.
I'm just so happy whenever any movie takes like a dark or dramatic or intense moment and doesn't make it gray. That's like my whole shit. I love that so much. It's like, we're having like this really like tough like war zone dretch like through like gunfire and smoke and stuff, and it's like, let's make it gray. It's like, no, let's make it light blue like the ocean. It's like, hell yes, please and thank you.
Colors in my movie?
No, my
thank
Star
you.
Wars? No.
But like,
no.
And like I said, I worked at the movie theater when this came out, which means that when I was going around cleaning theaters, I got to watch the last, I'll say 2 to 12 minutes of this movie so many times. And I would get that, we had like a sheet that like told you exactly when the credits started rolling on all the movies that were showing, so that you knew when to be there so you could clean it up as soon as people started to get up. But like whenever, basically if there was ever a gap that was like, you know, there's 10 minutes between movies, you could just kind of chill out for a minute. They were cool with you just being like, I'm going to go talk to whoever's at concessions or like get a drink or whatever before you get back and start cleaning again. But if it was Rogue One, I would always just hang out in the hallway. I would just go straight there and watch like the last 10 minutes of Rogue One, because every moment of it is so perfect and I never got tired of it. And the shot where they're like, okay, we did it, we got the plans, let's go. And they're like all jumping to light speed, like out, but then suddenly a Star Destroyer comes out of light speed directly on top of them right there, like in that wide shot where you can see everything. It's another one of those perfect Gareth Edwards moments where everything feels like it has weight and space in the world, and you really feel the scale of it. And seeing that humongous object just like appear out of nowhere, and like all of them just crash into it and like die, is like so cool.
It is really cool.
It's really cool. I wish they hammed it up just a little bit more when the Death Star, well, they have that cool moment where like something big is coming out of space, you just see like the Death Star, like a moon on the horizon, like right there. It's a super cool look shot. God, I wish they hammed it up just a little bit more with the general guy being shot down by the Death Star, because that's the good shit. That's the good irony.
But like,
he is destroyed by the creation that he wanted to take credit for so dearly bad.
Yeah, that he spent his whole life murdering and killing to get, and then now
to get
he's gonna
to the
get
top
shot
of
down.
this project, and now he just dies from it.
Yeah,
I think
it's really good.
I also think it's just a fun little like subversion of iconography that the Death Star is like upside down most of this movie.
Yeah, that's fun.
It's like there's no reason that it's right side up because it's in space.
The only reason the little circle is always facing us is because that's the gun part. But
and it's like if it's orbiting a planet, the gun part would be facing down probably, so it could hit the planet.
Yeah.
It's like, cool.
Makes sense.
It's just like
space.
You don't usually think about it, but you're just like, oh yeah, it could be upside down, and it looks different. It's fun.
Yeah, there is that really cool shot at the beginning too, with the Star Destroyer like coming into the light of a planet just from like the darkness of space, and it's like, hell yeah. And
then you realize that the stars behind it are actually just the lights of the Death Star.
Yeah.
So good.
Art.
Also, another part that kicks ass, when that ship like rams into the Star Destroyer and just pushes it into that other Star Destroyer.
It's the good shit.
It's so fucking sick. Like, I'm telling you, like, the last half hour of this movie is the best. Like, it is. It's really good. Like, it's so good.
Yeah.
Anybody in the chat have any hot takes about it?
Tabby again says, Darth Vader, scary. Which is very relevant.
That's the take. That's pretty
Darth
much
Vader, scary.
I'm trying to think of any other parts that kick ass before we start to wrap it up.
Yeah. We talk about like how people just die all the time and there's no time to mourn. But man, the shot where they're just holding each other as like you see the explosion like coming on the horizon to consume them is just so good. Especially like I love how they handle these two characters who have obviously gone through a lot together and like obviously have like really started to care about each other and each other's well-being, and without being like, hey, it's romantic, or hey, it's like whatever. They're just like, these are two people who very obviously care about each other. So there's like just having them just hold each other as the world collapses around them. It's just so nice. I love it so much.
I think we talked about this last time, but like obviously I never get to hear it, and like it is very refreshing to see these people who don't know much about each other actually not fall in love, because that's kind of ridiculous to expect that.
Yeah. Well, it's like, because they, like I said, like they obviously have a very deep connection and caring about each other.
Yeah,
but they're not in love. They don't know each other well enough to be in love. Like, you could say they're attracted to each other, but they're not in love.
Yeah.
Like, it's just really nice for it to just be like, I care about you, and the world is dying, and I want to be with you when the world ends. It's just like, it's so nice.
I think it would kind of cheapen it to have like that big cinematic movie kiss.
Yeah, exactly. At Rise of Skywalker.
I'm gonna make an absolutely insane comparison. I just need you to bear with me.
Alright, cool.
The moment where they're hugging as the explosion overtakes them reminds me in a weird way of the scene in Eurovision: the story of Fire Saga. When Rachel McAdams sings her big song at the end and starts singing in Icelandic, and everybody across the world is like, oh my god, she's doing it, she's singing in Icelandic, this is so beautiful. In the sense that, like, that on its own is so filmically beautiful that it doesn't matter how lazy the setup was to get to that moment, you know?
Yeah.
Like, because because that's what we talked about in that podcast episode, was like, the setup for that payoff was so lazy and so long ago, it's impossible for me to care about it. But, like, that song in that moment, when she hits that note and starts singing in Icelandic, you can't help but get choked up. Like, it's really beautiful. And, like, it totally...
I have to admit, I think you might be one of the only people who understands this reference.
Yeah.
No, come on.
And Jackson.
Popular film. But, I mean, look, other podcast listeners of our podcast.
Sorry. Your real fans will know.
But anyway, I always remember thinking, like...
We should start gatekeeping.
If you were a real fan, you would get all my references.
Yeah, you would have watched that film.
I love that phrase. We should start gatekeeping. that might be good for us.
I
with the same.
We don't have a lot of real fans, and I think it would be really good for our brand if
we just started gatekeeping.
I think we should start a competitive spirit between people to, like, really just offset them and make them uncomfortable to listen to the podcast.
I want to set up, like, a coliseum where they fight for my enjoyment.
Right, yeah.
Like, I would love if people coming in and listening to the podcast for the first time are hesitant to, even if they want to listen to it because they just know what kind of people listen to this podcast. You know?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
That's what I want
really that to always be in the back of their mind as they're enjoying the thing.
Right.
Just sort of like subtweeting about like, if you didn't listen to the Adeline and Satchel only episode,
you're not.
I think you should just kind of stop watching now.
Yeah, I don't think you get it.
But what I was going to say was that when I was cleaning theaters and watching the end of this movie, I was struck that, like, whenever I would watch that shot of them, like, being overtaken by the explosion, like, I had, like, such a strong, like, even, like, halfway through my shift at the movie theater watching, like, two out of context,
inside.
2 out of context minutes of a movie. Like, I would watch that and I would get, like, so, like, choked up sometimes. I'm like, that's so beautiful. And I couldn't help but remember that it weirdly didn't affect me quite as strongly in context when I watched it the first time, you know? Like, that moment on its own is weirdly has something taken away from it by the rest of the movie. If that makes any sense. You get what I'm saying?
No, I totally get it, yeah.
The only time in recorded history where the context of the movie makes the beauty of the scene just a little bit worse because you know it's a Star Wars movie at the end of the day.
Yeah, you know that a big guy in a cape is about to kill people after this this very scene.
There's still space wizards. So the nuke doesn't have as much impact at that point.
You know, it's a good moment. I'm just looking through my notes. That moment where they do that, like, initial, they, like, blow up a base or whatever, and then you cut to Ben Mendelsohn, like, up in the sky on their base, and they hear the explosion, they all turn around, and out that big window, you can see just, like, a little explosion, like, way off in the distance, like, just a little tiny mushroom cloud coming up. Super good. Love that.
Oh, I didn't notice that. That's
the way that this movie handles, like, the explosions is so good. They're so huge and slow and terrifying and loud, and just like
when Jeddah gets blown up, it's so crazy to me that there's absolutely no, like, dramatic music cues behind it when that laser strikes the earth. It's like Saw Gerrera having an intense conversation, but, like, just having a conversation with somebody, and they keep cutting back to the mostly silent, quiet footage of this giant space laser hitting the ground and destroying the entire city that they're a part of. And it's it's cutting back and forth between that and the conversation as if they are of equal importance. There's something so scary about that. And, like, I mean, I don't know, I said it before, but it's like this movie has such a perfect grasp on scale. Like, everything feels like it relates to everything else, you know?
Yeah.
You always, when you see something big, there's always something that you understand the size of really practically, sharing the frame with it, so you get a really true feeling of how fucking big that thing is.
Yeah.
Which no other Star Wars movie does as well as this movie does.
I absolutely love the shot where it's like the end of the explosion. I think, yeah, they just hit light speed, getting away from the explosion, and you just follow the explosion up as like, there's like bits of Earth are flying into space, and it just like keeps going, panning up until you see the Death Star, and it's like, that's the good shit.
Yeah, man. And it's weird how conversations about this movie go, because if you're talking about it, odds are you just finished watching it, meaning you're super pumped up about the last half hour of it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You're super
it's
pumped
really
up
unfair.
about the last, 2 minutes of it, you know?
It's so unfair how good the ending is, because I don't want to talk about the beginning.
Yeah.
The beginning's just
care about
not
the
that
beginning.
interesting.
Yeah.
Like, you just want to talk about the end forever.
I know, yeah. I mean, the chat wants to know when we cried during the movie. I mean, honestly, it's just that part where they hold each other at the end. Like, that's just...
I don't know, the part where Chirrut and Baze are Chirrut and Baze, they're, and like he, like, because he's this big dude that just doesn't he's established very clearly that he's like, I don't believe in that nonsense, you know.
Right.
I don't care if you do, that's whatever.
Right.
But he says the sort of like prayer at the end,
Right.
in just sort of like confirmation and in like solace with his friend, and it's just this beautiful last moment. It's
so
just
good.
Heartbreakingly sad, but oh man.
And it's another random grenade that takes him out too. It's just...
Yeah.
It's a random shot of the thing that explodes it, that takes out Chirrut, and then just like a dude doesn't even the grenade isn't even thrown at him. A dude dies holding a grenade, and he falls near him, and that's it.
I think I always get a little bit choked up after she gets the message from her dad, and she just has that moment of just like absolute emotional exhaustion where she just like falls to her knees after the message. It never makes me cry, but it always hits me super hard.
Yeah,
that's
and
true.
then
it's a good moment.
Something about K2's death is just so disturbing to me. Like, it just, the fact that he's a robot, so he like gets shot and he just keeps going, and he gets shot and he keeps going, and he gets shot until he just like can't go anymore, and like it's just it's so hard to watch.
The one final goodbye is just crushing. It's just he says it with just like way more implied emotion than I think we've ever seen like a robot do in any of the Star Wars movies.
It's
just, especially because he is a robot who, because of his reprogramming, he doesn't have a filter. So for him to just be like, hey, like his last words are basically like, hey, I love you guys. It's just like, shit, dude. It's really good.
It's really good, man.
Oh, okay. It feels like we're at the end, but I feel like there's one very important thing.
But we're gonna start over again.
There's one very important thing that we've completely failed to mention. Which is...
I gotta talk about CGI, man.
Yeah, CGI Grand Moff Tarkin. Your guys' thoughts?
Yep. Every time I look at it, it gets a little bit better. I'm a little bit more forgiving of it. And I think it's because I know it's coming. That first time, I was just like, ooh, whoops, oopsie poopsie.
Yeah.
Don't look good, don't look right. But like now that I like know it's a CGI guy and I've seen him like 3 times, I'm always like, it's not that bad. It's just the eyes, or like if a shot is like at a weird angle, sometimes it doesn't look right. Like every time I see it, I feel like I have to defend it a little bit more.
Does it make sense that he almost looks like he was animated in the same engine that the Clone Wars was?
No, that's fair. He's got a very square head.
I think he looks like a Pixar character. I mean, also just because Peter Cushing kind of looks like a Pixar character in general, but like the level of detail that it's rendered at feels like a dude in Toy Story 4, which is like a really impressive CGI creation, but it's not quite, like, it doesn't look like a real guy, you know?
Yeah. Well, there's a difference between, like, Pixar, what you're trying to do is, even though you're trying to emulate reality, you're trying to make art. But versus this, where you're literally just trying to imitate reality, like, it's not bad by any means, but because it's not exactly like reality, it comes off as bad, if that makes any sense, you know?
Yeah, I see that.
Sorry, one
Fuck me,
second.
I guess.
Oh, yeah, I haven't watched the light. Yeah, it's really sad.
It's bad. It's risky.
It was sad.
He's like a robot boy and he's dead.
I know.
But yeah, I don't know, and I feel like, you know, there's lots to be said about, like, people have, like, floated the theory that, like, if we get good enough at this whole CGI replication thing, it's like, at a certain point, are we ever gonna hit the point where you don't need to hire famous actors anymore? You can just have him come in one day, like, and have Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, like, scan himself into your computer, and then you just get Joe Schmo to do the part, and you just put Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson on top of him, and be like...
God, can you imagine being the Joe Schmo?
Yeah.
That's superimposed
like, this guy as The Rock, as whoever, like...
And, like...
Oh, man.
And I mean, look, but, I mean, that theory does totally discount the genuine talent that these huge movie stars have. And... you know, as good of an impression as you can do of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, you can't argue. You can't pretend like there isn't something, an inherent charisma to Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson that makes him fun to watch on screen.
Yeah,
because it's him. You know.
That's why I think that video games based on movies or video games based on, like, sports are famously really bad. Is because you can't. Part of it is the uncanny valley of, like, it doesn't look right, so I don't like it, but it's like, you can't just take the picture of Harry Potter and have him move around and do a funny little dance, and that's not the same as watching Daniel Radcliffe's performance as Harry Potter, you know? Like, it is just, you can't, people always say that, they're like, we're gonna lose, like, computers are gonna be so good that, like, we can't tell the difference and we're gonna lose our humanity, like, voluntarily, like, we're gonna give it up just because it's so amazing and it's so real. And it's like, no, because humans like other humans, like, just on a base. We like looking and talking to other humans, just because if we didn't, we would all be dead. Like, we like other humans.
I think that's why, like, even though clearly movies have this sort of incredible advantage over sort of live action theater and stuff like that, that's why that is a medium that exists. I know we're not talking about, you know, but as a theater man, like, I talk about that a lot because we're such social creatures, and it's so nice to see even the character interact and stuff like that, like, in front of us, that I think we will always at some point want to see, like, a real person, and maybe at one point we won't be able to tell, but I think it really, like, it helps to sort of recognize, oh, that's that actor, or, you know, or to, I don't know, just, but...
Well, and it's like, the argument is always that, like, the joke is, like, humans get attached to their Roombas. Like, we like to humanize things. Like, I think... like, when you said that, like, you talking about, like, digital, like, plays and stuff, like, I thought of holograms, and I thought of Hatsune Miku. Like, nobody thinks Hatsune Miku is a real person, because she's obviously not, but people adore Hatsune Miku.
It's the like, in-person aspect, I guess.
Exactly. It's her personality and the way she looks, and I feel like that's the same kind of thing. That if they made a hella realistic Hatsune Miku, I don't think people would like it as much, because it wouldn't seem as much like a real person as the cartoon does, weirdly, you know?
Yeah.
Disney, if you're watching this, please do not
make a live-action Hatsune Miku.
I can't take any more.
After Mulan, it's weirdly Hatsune Miku.
Yeah,
that's the next. Yeah, we have live action Mulan, Pinocchio, Hatsune Miku, and then finally our Star Wars musical. Maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think, I mean, it's hard to say, but I still think that we're genuinely a long ways off from having people delivering performances like that are genuinely indistinguishable from reality.
Yeah.
Considering that, first of all, the only people who are able to even come close are the largest corporations with the most income they can throw at this problem, and like the most
Disney.
man hours. Yeah. But although I will say, I am consistently impressed with Samuel L. Jackson and Captain Marvel. That like de-aging looks so good. I like never once even questioned how Samuel L. Jackson looks in that movie. It's insane.
Yeah. I mean, that's still just a tiny bit different.
Yeah, exactly.
Editing a person versus creating a full person.
Yeah. And like I think that, and it even goes to show like something like a building getting blown up, which is a completely lifeless, static, mathematically predictable action that happens in the universe. We still can't, you can always tell when it's CG still, which makes me think that we still got a long ways before like human performances are going to be genuinely indistinguishable from reality. Does that make sense?
Totally. Like nature is so hard to animate because it's not to talk about Jurassic Park again for the 10 billionth time, but like it is like that chaos theory that like there's not an algorithm to the way that a water drop falls or to the way that like a house explodes. Like it's always crazy and random, and like the human face when emoting is exactly that same way. Like you can get close or simplify it so that you can replicate like emotions and stuff, but like it's not gonna look like a person because a person's crazy complicated and can emote in 12 million different ways in a second.
Right.
And we can read that because we're designed to read it, but it's
What do you think, Adeline? I'm gonna throw this one to you.
okay.
Obviously, War for the Planet of the Apes, very well rendered, very realistic looking movie.
Yes.
Especially,
one of my favorite movies.
Especially in terms of the characters, the 8 characters.
Yeah.
Do you think the movie would be weird if they genuinely and truly were visually indistinguishable from real apes? You think that would make it better, or do you think it would make it worse?
I think the first movie would be amazing if they literally all looked like apes. Because could you imagine that one scene where Caesar says no for the first time and it genuinely, truly looks like a real chimpanzee?
Yeah.
That would be amazing.
That's a good
I think
point.
that'd be, I think the third one, I think it benefits from not looking exactly like reality. Not to say that it doesn't look like it looks really good.
It does look really good.
Even still, like the apes look so good. Like
But
especially
it's
with
still
hair.
like you don't accept it as true reality when you look at it.
No, and I think that's just a part of Planet of the Apes where you have the separation of reality built in, where it's apes walking around and talking. That's gonna look weird no matter how good the apes look.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it wouldn't benefit for them looking exactly like apes. If anything, I think it would make it weirder if they looked exactly like apes. Like, you would relate less to them because it would just be that much stranger.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You have to wonder when we're gonna get there, and when we do, how people are gonna respond to it. And
I always
people
think that
kind of
people
try to
tend-
pretend that we're there already, but I really don't think we are.
I
And
think
maybe
people have a habit of overestimating technology and what technology can do, which is generally a good thing, because by overestimating technology, we eventually get there. But like, I mean, like the obvious example is like the 60s. They're like, oh, in the year 2000, we're gonna have flying cars, and we're like nowhere close to that. But like, even like Tosh said, it's like people thinking that online shopping would replace malls, and that didn't happen. And it's like it's the same as like when like the internet came out, or like online dating, or like the whole thing with Second Life, where people are gonna fully replace their lives with Second Life, and that didn't happen, and no one's on Second Life anymore. Like, I feel like people tend to like they overestimate what technology is and how it will affect their life.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, we like to reach a normal. Like, we like to maintain a normal, and we add stuff to that, and we change it a lot. But, like, it's fully replacing humans with holograms or robots or CGI is just way...
It's just never going to be fully integrated in the way we think
It's just never going to be fully
to.
integrated because we don't like that.
That's a good take. I like that a lot.
Yeah. I'm smart.
Okay. Any final thoughts before I wrap it up?
Robot sexy.
Robot sexy.
K2SO, can't get it. Can't confirm. Oh,
Doesn't
Adeline...
have as much cake as C-3PO, but it good.
Can you check out the chat one last time for me, Adeline?
Yeah.
See if there's anything.
Tosh is leaving, and in her defense, we've been recording for a very long time.
It's been
somebody named Ginger Snap is really worried that someone will touch Hatsune Miku.
That's Tasha's sister. She's wonderful.
Oh, gotcha. And then Tabby said people love Dwayne The Rock Johnson way too much.
Okay. So, would you guys like to hear our 1-star review of Rogue One?
I kind of don't.
I would love
to. But I'll take it.
So this is a review from Letterboxd.com. This person says, I was given this script, so I would appreciate it if you read it. By the way, this movie was horrible and there was only one Death Star. The world we live in. It's so wondrous, mysterious, even magical. No.
Keeps going.
No, not that world. I meant this one. The smartphone. Each system and program app is its own little planet of perfect technology, all providing services so necessary, so crucial, yet so unbelievably profound.
How long does it go?
You would be surprised at how long it goes, my friend. I'm not gonna read the whole thing.
No, please.
Let me tell you. No, Adeline, I'm still scrolling, my man.
This my God.
Is he just talking about the iPhone?
Absolutely
It's just
insane.
the emoji. That's the Emoji Movie script. That's
is that
straight
the guy?
up the.
Is it really?
Yeah, that's straight up the Emoji
Oh,
Movie script.
fuck. I didn't even
Damn
know.
it, they got you, Jackson.
They got me.
They got you.
They got us again.
I was reading that like it was a goddamn slam poem.
Honestly,
And
you could.
it felt like it. I thought I was right to do that.
I thought this was gonna be some Rick and Morty galaxy brain asshole talking about how amazing technology is.
Only one Death Star.
God.
Yeah,
My
no,
name's
I'm really
Alan
hung up on
McMurray.
there was only one Death Star because I'm trying to figure out if this person is trying to say that, like, this is if they thought that the Death Star in this movie was a different Death Star and they're upset about the fact that they added another Death Star into the Star Wars
I think
canon.
they're making a joke that they're giving it a 1 star, but they're like, there's only one Death Star.
Right, that's another reading. The other reading is that they're like, original Star Wars only, not my Death Star.
Not
like,
not in my Star Wars.
Or no, I like to read it as there's only one star because there's only one. Like, if it would have been higher if there had been more Death Stars.
If there had been 5 Death Stars, it would have been 5 stars.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm Jackson McMurray. I forgot to do
My
that
name is
part.
Adeline McMurray.
And I'm Satchel, the guest.
Yeah, this is
I
No Nerds
swear to
Allowed.
God that the music has been fading this whole time. I swear to God.
Yeah, no, I don't know.
There's no way it hasn't.